am not here to teach y'all how racism works in the year of our Lord 2023. If you don't know by now, it's because you either don't care or you want it to continue. Hey, sound good, don't it? Got a little upgrade, got a theme song, got a new background behind me. Welcome back to the BKA Beloved podcast. I'm your host, of course, BKA Beloved. Today on the show, we got all the Justin Herbert hate, a way too early playoff preview, and what if the Patriots actually don't suck enough? But before we get to what we are covering, I gotta get to what we're not. First, the Bills' self-destruction, which includes Josh Allen still throwing the ball to the other team and fumbling the ball to the other team. Before the season's over, he will have 100+ turnovers for his entire career. I wish that was a joke. It isn't. Just fired their offensive coordinator today, and their replacement is Joe Brady, who, if you don't know him by name, his claim to fame is that he was the offensive coordinator for the LSU team that had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and about 8 other future NFL players on that team. I think I could have coached that team to at least the 10-win season. But sure, that's where your hearts are. But again, not talking about that. Oh yeah, how could I forget before we move on to the next thing? And Trayvon Diggs confirming everything we already knew about Stephon Diggs not wanting to be there anymore. But again, we're not talking about it. Also missed the cut, everything NBA. We have a very long NBA season ahead of us. The play-in tournament's happening right now. However, we will get there when we get there. Third, we have the end of the Belichick era. Me as a Patriots fan, I'm starting to come around a little bit to maybe this will actually be Belichick's last year. And I kind of see it. I kind of agree now. I don't feel great about it. I feel dirty on the inside, but I'm there. I'm with y'all. I'm there. And last, what is being left off? The world is on fire. There are multiple genocides going across the world. I very literally, right before I hit record, saw a man on the timeline for Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's calling itself now, set himself on fire so that he can draw attention to the genocide that is happening in his country. I could have gone my entire life without seeing that video. And honestly, I'm not one to duck political topics, as you'll see in the opening monologue immediately after this. But I'm cool just talking about sports right now. All that is heavy, heavy, heavy shit. And I just pray for the safety. Hopefully we get all that worked out. The world is actually on fire right now, and it's fucking crazy. All right, opening monologue time. So last week's opening monologue got me a little bit of heat. Not really, a couple comments and DMs here and there. Because I defended Caleb Williams, and one of the opening remarks was, the critiques of Caleb Williams are weird, which does not surprise me at all, because when the #1 overall prospect is a black quarterback, it's always weird. In a past video, I once said, people hear race brought up, and their brain just immediately shuts off, and they hear nothing else you say for the rest of the video. So my original plan was to come on here and to do an entire history of black quarterbacks in the NFL and how they are treated, how they are covered, the way, all of it, right? Full-blown history. But in the middle of writing it, I stopped myself for a couple reasons. Number one, I did a very small sample size version of it. If you have a couple spare minutes, feel free to go over to it in the Caleb Williams section of last week's episode. I did a small little sample size of it where I went over Michael Vick being the first ever black quarterback to be taken first overall, Cam Newton, the way he was covered, Lamar Jackson, the way he was covered. Did a little small sample size on that. Obviously, I could have kept going, but I just did that for now because I wanted to get back to my point. And I stopped as I was about to expand for this episode for the reason that these people leaving these comments don't care. They don't. And I'm not here to teach people how racial bias works. That's not what I'm here for. That's not my purpose on this planet. There are plenty of content creators whose whole content base centers around them explaining racial bias, explaining the history of racism, explaining how all these things work in and against our favor as black people, right? Hats off to them. A lot of them I enjoy. But me personally, After 2020, I decided I'm not doing anything along those lines. Here's why. When the George Floyd situation first happened and all of the peaceful protests and the civilian uprisings, we don't use the word riot around here, was happening all across the globe, not even country, globe, several countries. People who have never even seen a black person before were out in the streets of their nation protesting over George Floyd, a man they have never met, because they could recognize how much of an injustice that was. And this is after Mike Brown was what, 2014? So this is 6 to 7 years later of mass media coverage of the killing of unarmed black men at the hands of the police. And that summer, for the first time, it seemed like non-black people were finally getting it. It finally clicked. Oh, this is what they were talking about. Oh, they weren't making it up the whole time. All these corporations were putting out statements, donations to this organization and that organization, and oh, we're going to give this to HBCUs. Oh my God, we're so sorry we weren't better allies. All this performative bullshit, right? And a lot of people took a lot of things from that time in our history. But you know what I took from it? I took from it, oh, so y'all knew what was going on this entire time. Because I refuse to believe that an event that has happened for 7 years prior, this one magically was the one that made it click for you. Obviously, wish nothing but the best for the Floyd family, and what happened to George Floyd is tragic like it was for every other person that was killed at the hands of the police as an unarmed black man or black woman, right? But me personally, you're just not going to convince me that this one individual incident that you have seen for 7 years prior is the one that made it click for you. So at that moment, I say, you know what, yo? If they didn't know before, they damn sure know now. And I am not here to teach y'all how racism works in the year of our Lord 2023. If you don't know by now, it's because you either don't care or you want it to continue. Either way, I'm not here to reinforce that for you. That is a very roundabout way of me explaining why I'm not going to give people the background of why I feel like black quarterbacks are discriminated against and I have a bias against them. If you don't see why and you don't care to research it yourself and you immediately jump to, oh, they're just pulling the race card again. Oh, they're just playing the victim. Matter of fact, I'll do one thing real quick. I saw RG3, Robert Griffin III. He posted a clip from his podcast that he does talking about how he was officiated differently than from white quarterbacks. About him, Cam Newton, and Lamar Jackson. He is speaking from his own experience. Him, an actual black quarterback that played in the NFL, and a damn good one. He was Rookie of the Year. I don't know where people who are listening to this are from. I'm from PG County, Maryland. I grew up most of my life 15 minutes away from FedEx Field, where the Washington, then Redskins, now I refuse to call them the name they are now, where they play, right? I was there for the RG3 experience. This was 2012, 2013. I was in high school for this. I still haven't seen the DMV area with that much energy yet. RG3's experience was different at that time. Damn good quarterback. He's telling people his own experience. So you would think that a regular-minded individual, a sane person, would be able to go in his comments and say, damn, RG3, I'm sorry you went through that. That's crazy. Nope. Instead, it's a whole bunch of American flags in the bio and in the picture. MAGA lover 123, conservative guy 105. Oh, you're just playing the victim. Race this, race that. You just weren't that good. Blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, you shaped like the Michelin Man and the only thing you lift and throw is your remote. Fuck out of here, bro. Like that. That's what I'm talking about. The information is in front of you. Fuck Google. RG3's your Google. He's right there. He's right in front of you, telling you his experience. Hey, me, black quarterback. This happened to me in the league. This is what happened. And everyone's like, nope, you're wrong. This isn't because of race. It's not a problem at all. And these are the people y'all want me to argue with to educate? These are the people? Them? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Off my soapbox I go. I need a drink of water. or some shit before I get back. When we get back, we're going to get to the questions asked by you beautiful people. We're going to take a quick break so I don't like blow my gasket. Give me a second. And we're back. If I was actually a good media personality and podcast host, let me phrase that. If I was a better media personality and podcast host, I would have gave y'all a little tease before I left to go calm down, saying, speaking of racial bias and quarterbacking, we're going to talk about that again with our first question, which is, why do you hate Justin Herbert? Let me read this to y'all the way I heard it when I got the question. Why do you hate Justin Herbert, man? First of all, I don't hate Justin Herbert. I hate the way he is covered. That is very different statements, right? It's similar to the boy who cried wolf. Before I get to the race part, it's the boy who cried wolf. All Justin Herbert's career, we are told that the losses he takes are not his fault. And some of them aren't. Legitimately, some of them aren't. You lose a game 42-45, not your fault. You go out there, you throwing for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 4 incompletions. You still lose? Hey, man, the game is the game. You got to play defense on the other side. Not your fault. Justin Herbert's in year 4. How long is it not going to be his fault? How many times are you going to keep telling me it's not his fault as we continue to watch him lose games? I did a season preview for all 32 teams before the season. And I tried to be as fair as possible to Justin Herbert because it's not his fault that he's covered this way. All he does is go and play football. I can't even tell you what he sounds like. And most people can't even pick his face out of a lineup. And when I was trying to be fair, I was like, hey, his talent out of this world. Can't be denied. The injury issues, for the most part, fair. Derwin James missed like 8 games a year. Joey Bosa, same thing. Mike Williams, same thing. Keenan Allen, I thought was the same thing until I looked up this little stat today. Hold on. As I was preparing for today's video, did you know that Keenan Allen has played 49 of a possible 58 games he could play together with Justin Herbert? Their actual best receiver has only missed 9 out of 58 of the possible games they could play together. And back to the wins and loss things, because I'm firmly on the winning is definitely a quarterback stat. Wins are a quarterback stat. They just are. They're not only a quarterback stat. They're not the only quarterback stat, but it is a quarterback stat, especially when they are winning because the offense is centered to work because of you and not in spite of you. If you don't know the difference, working in spite of you is every 49ers quarterback under Kyle Shanahan. Purdy, Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, all of them. That offense is built around the limitations of their quarterback. To work because of you, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Those offenses are built around them and their strengths, and if they aren't at their best, the offense doesn't work. So when they win and that offense hums, it is largely because of them. Justin Herbert is not in an offense that is built to work in spite of him. Another part of the Justin Herbert coverage that bothers me, every time he loses, outside of I keep getting told it's not his fault, I keep having to hear how great he is. And oh my God, look at his throw. Oh my God, look at these traits he has. Oh wow, look, these are the numbers, the advanced analytics, which I have a whole nother point about advanced analytics that we'll get to on another day, because that's just a whole nother can of worms on that one. In these losses, every time we see him lose, all we have to hear about is how great he is. Meanwhile, and this is where the race car comes in, guys. I'm bringing it in. Brace yourselves for the people who want to turn their brain on. Keep it on. Don't worry. Keep your brain on. Meanwhile, every time I see Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts lose, all I hear about is their flaws, or all I hear about is how it's not their fault that they're winning, or it's not their responsibility that they're winning. Tell me how that makes sense. Again, as we spoke about before, Lamar Jackson's offense, since he came in the league, is built around his skill set. Lamar Jackson is 52-19 since he has entered the league. I will say that again for you. 52-19. People of the audience, would you like to know what Justin Herbert's record is since he has entered the league? Justin Herbert is 29-29. He is a 500 quarterback since he has entered the league. Oh, but wins don't matter. Winning doesn't matter. Winning is not a quarterback stat. All right, cool. Whatever. And back to the Keenan Allen point, because, weapons, got to have your weapons around you, right? Who's the receiver Lamar Jackson's had that could even smell Keenan Allen's jockstrap? All due respect to Mark Andrews, not Keenan Allen. And he's a tight end. An actual tight end, not a Travis Kelce type tight end. An actual tight end. Hand in the ground, blocks, all that fun shit, right? And I think this part right here is where Chargers fans are really getting their panties in a bunch to an extra degree this year. It's because Justin Herbert has been allowed to skate for years doing the same thing he's doing now. Like I said earlier, his career record is 29-29. He's a 500 quarterback. He's 4-5 right now. His numbers are about the same as they've always been. His record is about the same as they've always been. You know what the difference is? Last playoffs, we saw him lose a game up 27 points. And again, his fans will tell you it's not his fault. Even though if he scores one touchdown in the second half, they win that game. And he couldn't do that. Your top 5 quarterback couldn't score a single point in an entire half with his season on the line. And we all saw it. And now after that, as sports fans and some of the media, we all could look at it and go, this guy that keep telling us is top 5. And the reason I say keep telling is because, let's be honest, most people don't watch the Chargers because they're in Los Angeles. You look at their games, most of their games is filled with people from the other team. So we can be honest about that too. That also plays a part in it. This guy that they keep telling us is a top 5 guy, we just saw him fold on a grand stage as prime time as it gets in the playoffs against a person playing also in his first playoff game for a franchise that we always have known as a poverty franchise. The Jaguars have always been a poverty franchise. So now this season, we're not trying to hear that stat shit. We're not trying to hear that cool throw shit. Hey, bro, where are the wins? Where are your W's? And these stat nerds and Chargers fans cannot handle it. They can't handle it because eventually, back to the boy who cried wolf, eventually there has to be a wolf. You can't keep telling me there's a wolf and I got to keep believing it. Eventually I'm going to stop coming. And then when the wolf actually shows up, I'm not going to fucking believe you. In Justin Herbert's case, you keep telling me him losing is not his fault. Got you. And sometimes you're right. A lot of the times you're right. But I'm not trying to hear that after 58 games of watching this man. Last point, and then I'll move on. With the 27-0 meltdown, there's no other way to put it. Full-blown meltdown in the playoffs. Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson were up for contract extensions in the same offseason, this past offseason, right? Every sports network was questioning whether Lamar Jackson was worth the contract he was asking for, if not flat out telling us that he was not worthy of it. Lamar Jackson, who is an MVP winner, Lamar Jackson, who again is 52-19 for his career, has never missed the playoffs his entire career. Even the years he didn't finish, his team still made the playoffs because he had him in such a great position by the time he left that they still were able to make it in. They had us questioning whether he was worthy of his contract. He got his deal. The questions were still there. Not even a month later, Justin Herbert signed a bigger deal after our last memory of him was a 27-point meltdown in the playoffs. Still no playoff wins. Still no All-Pros. Still no MVPs. Quiet as a church mouse. Nobody asked a single question as to whether or not he was worth the contract at all. Nobody. And again, this has nothing to do with him as a person and a player. It is about his stands and the way they cover him, because that's fucking ridiculous. I shouldn't say thank you for the question because it's a whiny ass question, but still, thank you for the question, for letting me be able to get the Justin Herbert stuff off my chest. Next question, who will be our playoff first round exit? I interpret this question as who will be the higher seeds who end up getting ejected from the playoffs early. The easy answer is whoever wins the NFC South is going home early. It's congratulations, Saints, Bucks, or Falcons, because we all know the Panthers aren't going to win it. You won your division. You get a home playoff game against the Cowboys, Eagles, Seahawks, or 49ers. Because we can be honest, that 5th seed is going to be whoever loses the NFC East or NFC West. And we think the winners are going to be the Eagles and the Niners, but we have 7 weeks left. We have no idea how this is going to work out. So whoever wins the NFC South, you're just hosting a playoff game, earn some extra revenue, do good for your team. That's about all that's happening that day. That's the easy answer, but let's take a look at the current playoff picture as it stands. Graphics on the screen for the video. If you're listening, I got you. So for the AFC, 1 seed is currently the Chiefs, 2 seed Ravens, 3 seed Jaguars, 4 seed Dolphins, 5 seed Steelers, 6 seed Cleveland, 7 seed Texans. NFC, 1 seed Eagles, 2 seed Lions, 3 seed 49ers, 4 seed Saints, 5 seed Seahawks, 6 seed Cowboys, 7 seed Vikings. And I got to throw the in the hunt here just because I think at least one of these in the hunt teams are going to end up making it. In the hunt for the AFC, we got the Bengals, Colts, and Bills. In the hunt for the NFC, we got Bucks, Washington, and Falcons. All right. How spicy do we want to start off with these upsets? This is either going to sound really smart after the Monday game or really stupid and blow up in my face. But fuck it. We go for glory on this podcast. Are we sure the Chiefs are good? This year's version of the Chiefs. Are we sure that they're actually Super Bowl worthy good? Not like regular season. But this is the Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs we're talking about here. We're not talking about good in terms of can they win 12 games in a regular season. Who gives a fuck? They're playing for Super Bowls. If the other team scores 28 points against them in the playoffs, are we sure that KC can match it? I know that sounds crazy to ask about a Patrick Mahomes team, but hear me out. The Chiefs have went over 28 points 2 times this season against Chicago Bears, who have 2 top 5 draft picks, more than likely in this year's draft, and the aforementioned Chargers, who at the time had the worst pass defense in football. Every other game, they averaged 19 points, which is less than 3 touchdowns. So I will ask you again, are we sure that the Chiefs are good? Are we sure? I think the defense is good. I think the defense is phenomenal. I think Patrick Mahomes is still good. I think he's great. The offensive line and receiving core are very suspect. Very suspect. And this is also roundabout, I'm dissing the Chiefs and I'm going to compliment them at the same time, right? This is also kind of an argument for Patrick Mahomes MVP because if they end up with the 1 seed with this offense, we got to consider it because we don't even realize that Travis Kelce is washed yet because he's their only viable option and Mahomes is going to force him the ball, so the numbers are going to look better than they are. But if you don't believe that Travis Kelce is washed, go watch Mahomes' first year as a starter and go watch Travis Kelce now. And tell me you don't see a difference. Also, the Taylor Swift stuff is distracting from the Travis Kelce being washed thing, but I don't get into that type of stuff on this podcast. This is not what this is for. So I'm just going to throw this out there. Let's say KC gets the 2 seed, all fun and games until CJ Stroud comes into your house. And then we're going to figure out how good we actually think CJ Stroud and them are. More on them later. This one's a lot more likely, not as shocking. The Miami Dolphins, who still have not beaten a team that is not in we should probably tank territory. Newsflash, every playoff team is good. They are currently at the 4 seed, and the 5 seed they will play in the first round will be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as bad as that offense is, a Mike Tomlin defense coming into your building in January, oh boy, that is not a recipe for your success, let me tell you. The interesting thing about the Dolphins, though, is they can get swept by the Bills, still never beat a good team, and still end up with 10 or 11 wins and win the division just because of how their schedule is shaped out. I'm not going to go game by game here, but it's weird the way their division is. This could still very much happen for them. Last, who could probably get bounced in the first round, the Detroit Lions. I personally think they're going to end up with the 1 seed, but in the event that they don't, this is going to be the first playoff game they played since the Obama administration. Again, I wish that was a joke. It is not. Last playoff game they played was in January of 2016. They haven't won a playoff game since before Nas's Illmatic came out. Illmatic came out in 1993. Their last playoff win was in January of 1992. Let's say they get the 2 or the 3 seed, and they end up playing the lesser of the NFC West or NFC East losers. So Cowboys, Eagles, Seahawks, Niners, whoever ends up being in that 6 or 7 spot, right? Or the more fun situation for me, what if our guy, the pastronaut, Josh Dobbs, still got the horseshoe up his ass and he walks into Ford Field and gets it done on him? Tell me that doesn't sound like fun. Tell me that doesn't sound like fun. Those are the only surprising ones that I have so far. But the most likely answer is that NFC South winner. Yeah, curtains. Wrap it up. You're going to go into the first round, and some lucky 5 seed is going to play against Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, or Desmond Ridder / Taylor Heineke. The football gods could not be kinder. Thanks for the question. Next question. Who could start from the wild card and shock the world by making it to the Super Bowl? I might be the only person who's not a Cowboy fan who still believes in this. I still think the Cowboys could make the Super Bowl and possibly win it. I know they've had some tough losses this year. The Eagles did everything in their power to give the Cowboys that game. I wish I was exaggerating. No, they did everything in their power to give the Cowboys that game, including 1st and goal from the 6 with 4 chances left to give them the touchdown to win the game, and they couldn't do it. The 49ers obviously kicked them in the teeth. I know it doesn't look great for the Cowboys' Super Bowl chances right now. But have you seen Dak lately? You seen the defense lately? We thought Deron Bland was going to end up being the weak spot in that secondary. Turns out it's Stephon Gilmore. And he's not even that bad. Would it be easier if they ended up actually winning the division and they had some home games? You would think so, right? But they actually play better on the road in the playoffs than they do at home. I'm just saying, I wouldn't put it past them to end up going, let's say, start with the NFC South winner. Then they go to the 1 or 2 seed, let's say the Lions, go to Ford Field against the Lions, NFC Championship, rematch against the Eagles or the Niners. 1 or 2 plays go their way, they end up in the Super Bowl now. Does that sound so crazy? Not really, right? This one, I feel disgusting bringing this up. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel gross. It's going to eat at me to say this out loud, but it has to be considered. What if we get the second half of the Ravens game Deshaun Watson for an entire postseason? What if we get Houston Deshaun Watson for a whole postseason? With that Browns defense coming into your house from the 6th seed? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I would have wished that on my worst enemy. You're telling me that after going through an entire regular season of busting my ass trying to win this division, my reward is a divisional round game against Myles Garrett and this blitz-happy defense and Deshaun Watson, who has remembered how to play football. Yikes. That's a rough day. That's a rough day at the office. Let's take one last look at these wild card teams. The Bengals are an obvious option if they end up making it. That's not fun. I'm not going to bury the Bills just yet because it's still 7 games left and who knows, but I can't see them making the playoffs. I can't see it. I would love for Josh Dobbs to make it to the Super Bowl, but Cinderella stories stop eventually, right? Oh, yeah, I think that about wraps up the Super Bowl Cinderella stories from the wild card spot. Thanks for the question. All right, last question. If the Patriots don't get a top 5 pick, what should they do? That'll put us at the number 6 pick. I think the top 5 of the draft will be some combination of the 3 definites are Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr. And then there's 4 possibles. It depends on what team is up there. J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and Oluwa Mashanwu. I'm West African and I just butchered that. I'm sorry to all the Nigerians out there. And his last name is Fashanu, the offensive tackle from Penn State, who I think is going to be incredible when he gets to the league. So I'm going to knock those 7 off the board just for the sake of the exercise, right? My first thought is Mac Jones cannot be the quarterback going into next year. That's priority numero uno. It takes precedent over Bill Belichick not doing personnel decisions, takes precedent over the coaching staff. Mac Jones cannot be in a Patriots uniform starting at quarterback next season. I don't think he should be in a Patriots uniform starting after the bye week. I've seen enough of Mac Jones. We're good. No mas. That is a broken man. However, if we're at the 6th pick and worst case scenario, we're only able to get the 5th or 6th best quarterback at 6, I would like to break the Belichick tradition, especially if he's no longer on the staff, of trading back from potentially high draft picks to acquire more capital just to fuck those picks up anyways. As far as a quarterback, before we get to the pick, as far as quarterback, my ideal situations originally, if we weren't able to draft a quarterback, was trading for Kyler Murray or signing Kirk Cousins. There's some problems with that now. Kirk Cousins just popped his Achilles about 2 or 3 weeks ago, so that's a dud now. He's not going to be ready to play until mid next year, maybe. Contrary to what Aaron Rodgers wants to tell y'all, Achilles tears still take about a year. Still pretty long recovery process. And Kyler Murray is going to do everything in his power to make sure the Cardinals don't have a high enough pick to draft a quarterback, so he's probably out of the question too. So that brings us to the next tier of quarterback, which will be trading for Justin Fields, signing Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, Josh Dobbs, under hopefully a more quarterback-friendly regime next time around. I'd assume if we're moving on from Belichick, we're not going to hire a defensive coach. I know Gerard Mayo's like the quote-unquote in-the-know next coaching hire that everyone thinks we're going to go with next, but I just don't see the purpose. If Belichick and the Patriot way are apparently the problem, why would we hire a former player as our head coach? And I love Gerard Mayo. He's one of my favorite Patriots to watch growing up, but that just doesn't make sense to me strategically. But under a more quarterback-friendly system, I would want to go with Justin Fields just because I think the potential of those 3 picks, Justin Fields would be the highest. Now, with that number 6 pick, I would want to go best tackle available, who I think will be the dude from Notre Dame, whose name escapes me right now. Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, who, although he's in the name Hall of Fame, and that's an amazing reason to draft him, the other reason to draft him is our 2 starting cornerbacks for the New England Patriots, one of which we just cut, and he's signed to the Raiders now as we speak. The other one we just traded from the Chargers, and thankfully they took their money on. I don't know what that situation is going to look like after the season, and he can't even get on the field no more. So clearly we're going to need some secondary help next year. I just think the number 6 pick is a little too high to draft whoever the number 2 receiver is on the board, whether it's Malik Neighbors, Keon Cole. And if it sounds like I'm spitballing here for the draft stuff, it's because I haven't gone as draft prep heavy as I will around combine time when I can really deep dive into stuff. Right now, I'm like more so casually watching college football, seeing who pops off the screen, things of that nature. And these are the names that really just come up and just pop. And when I think of who are the top players in these classes, these are the guys, right? So that's the best answer I have right now. But the realistic answer is if we end up having this terrible fucking season and we end up with pick number 6, and we're not in position to draft a great quarterback, I'm going to have to go up to Foxborough and Gillette Stadium and fight somebody. I don't know. That might be my best course of action because there's no reason for us to try and win another game this year. The 2 teams who we will be fighting for a higher pick, the Giants and the Broncos, the ones we have left on our schedule, the Broncos look like they're trying to win now, so there's no reason for us to have to beat them. And the Giants, look, losing to Tommy DeVito might be hard. It might be hard. Maybe they have Tyrod Taylor back by then. I pray for Tyrod's health so we have a better chance of tanking that day. But I don't know, man. That's just rough. Bruh, I swear to God, if we end up going through this terrible season and not have a top 5 pick, I'm going to be mad if we don't end up with a 1 pick. If we end up at 6, oh my God. I know I'm supposed to say thank you for the question, but that just broke my heart. We're going to take a break before we get to our closing segment. God damn it. All right, closing segment. We're going to end on a little bit of a downer, but I think is absolutely necessary. Last week, a story came out about Keke Palmer getting a temporary restraining order on her child's father, Darius Jackson, with reports of domestic violence, abuse, death threats. Apparently, there's a video of some of these alleged abuses and violent acts. Only reason I say alleged is because I have not watched it because I don't want to put that on my spirit. And I believe her. Like, I don't need to go into that much detail to believe her. And apparently that puts me in the minority. I am genuinely disgusted with my fellow man today. It's not the first time I've been genuinely disgusted with my fellow man, but it kind of hit a point to where I'm looking at the replies to this story and it's everything but damn, that's messed up that Keke Palmer's baby father was abusing her. I hope her and their child, who's not even one yet, are okay and safe. Bare minimum response, right? Instead, the gender wars just continue. And I know people who are here for a sports podcast. Don't worry. We're going to tie this into sports a little bit later. I'm going to bring it back. Don't you worry. Don't leave yet. And I'm watching these responses and I'm reading and they just get darker and darker and darker. Some going as far as she deserves it. I should have beat her too. It's like, God damn, like, how have we gone from protect and provide, head of household, we should have standards as men and all that fun shit. And I hate that I'm doing this. I try my best to stay out of the gender war topics and relationship this and what role should you play in your relationship. I hate that shit. But I find this necessary. If at bare minimum as a man, you cannot flat out say this woman does not deserve to be beat. Like, do y'all remember the story of the woman who got hit in the face with a brick or was allegedly hit in the face with a brick because there were reports that it was fake that were later disproven and then reproven and not proven? Lady that was hit in the face with a brick. There were people coming out saying that she deserved it. And at that point, I was like, yo, we can't agree that a woman shouldn't be hit in the face with a brick? At bare minimum, we can't agree on that. Like, we can't get off of our He-Man Woman Haters Club side of the aisle to just come over and be like, you can get back to talking about how women should be more like your grandmother tomorrow. We can get back to that if that's your prerogative. But if for today, you can't at least be like, damn, yo, ladies, that's fucked up. We shouldn't be hitting women in the side of the face with bricks. That's fucked up. Never had to go through that. For a day, one day, that's too much to ask for. And with Keke to see the same thing, to make it even more disturbing, what really, really got to me and what made me have to talk about it right now was the stories of women sharing their experiences after reading the Keke story. Heinous video game villain, comic book villain level shit that these men are doing to these women. And again, instead of going the route of sympathy, the men jump to, you're lying, you're making this up for clout, you're making this up for attention. Everything except the bare minimum of, damn, yo, that's fucked up, that happened to you. That's just bare minimum. That's not pandering. It's not pick me shit. That's called human decency of the absolute bar being on the crust of the earth of you should not get hit with a brick. Is that so hard to say? Is that so difficult? And it makes me wonder if it's a generational thing. How did we get and fall so far to where subjects of abuse are not even enough to make us go to our women and be like, damn, bruh, we should be here to support you in any way. Here's why I figured out it's not a generational thing, and it's just a men thing in general. And this is where the tie into sports comes in. I spoke about Deshaun Watson earlier. Obviously, it's not domestic violence. It's a very different situation. How do we talk about Deshaun Watson? Earlier, I was watching First Take, and Molly Karen was introducing a segment about the Browns and Ravens game. And I heard her have to enthusiastically say, how about Deshaun Watson in that Baltimore Ravens game? And honestly, I threw up in my mouth a little bit. And I don't know where Molly Karam's stances are about whether she believes whatever Deshaun Watson did was what he did. That's between her. I don't know if she said it in an interview or anything. I didn't take the chance to look into it at all. But I gotta imagine that's just uncomfortable for everyone to have to talk about. Me personally, as far as where I stand on the Deshaun Watson thing, I just don't believe that many women are lying. Straight up. That's where I landed on the Bill Cosby thing as well. That's just where I land on a lot of the issues. Everybody isn't lying. Even if one of them are telling the truth, you are a predatory motherfucker and you should be punished for it. To me, that's simple. But he's still in the league and people have to cheer for him on Sunday. Some Browns fans take it extremely far and they're out there with the signs talking about there's nothing wrong with a happy ending and massage me to Sean and all. Y'all saw the signs when I'm not even going to attach them because I'm pretty sure to get this video taken down. But y'all saw the signs. So one day I had to talk to a friend of mine who is a Browns fan and one of the most moral people I know. I did not ask him if I could talk about this conversation on the podcast. If not, I will call him by name, but I won't do that to him. I asked him, I said, verbatim, you are one of the most moral people I know. You are also a Browns fan. How do you rationalize rooting for Deshaun Watson on your team? Because obviously, if you're rooting for a team, you cannot also root for your team and not root for the quarterback of your team, who touches the ball every play, right? Fact about my friend, he's a former attorney. And he was able to pierce and parse through all the legal terms and legal definitions of Deshaun Watson's case and go into minutia and detail as to how he can justify to himself rooting for Deshaun Watson. For him, I say cool, because the legal terminology that he knows, right above my head. So if that's how he's able to come to that conclusion, I can accept that. That is not the answer for everybody. We can lie about it, but we know that's not the answer for everybody. A lot of the answer is, Deshaun Watson's on my team. I don't care what he did. Bet. How do I know this? This situation is domestic abuse. Tyreek Hill. Nobody talks about the fact that he beat his pregnant girlfriend, put her in the hospital. Nobody talks about it, except for a couple people who respond to his tweets on Twitter. No one talks about it in mass media. We talk about his race to 2,000 yards. Every chance we get. We talk about him being the fastest receiver in football. And I'm guilty of it too, which is why I keep saying we and not y'all. I'm guilty of it too. Because every time we talk about these players, we can't be like, Tyreek Hill goes for 10 catches, 150 yards, and he also beat his pregnant girlfriend a couple years back. Like, I get logistically why we don't do it, but it feels like we go from logistics to flat out, this does not matter because he's good at sport. And there's several other examples I can get into. Ben Roethlisberger is going to go into the Hall of Fame in 2 or 3 years? How many people are going to bring up the fact that he was suspended for sexually assaulting a woman in a bathroom? How many people are going to bring that up? The Giants kicker, whose name I can't remember right now, Josh Brown or Lawrence Time, one of the two, who came out and confessed in a diary that he religiously beat his wife repeatedly. We can go on and on about these stories. There's a lot of them. That's just kind of commonplace in sports. And that's just football. Before we start venturing into other sports, Miles Bridges is supposed to make his debut with the Hornets any day now. And it really just makes me think, how do we as men be better about this? I genuinely don't have an answer. And I wanted to approach some of these women that were telling these stories about their domestic violence experiences, but it's a hard subject to approach. For several reasons. One, you don't know where they're at with the subject issue and the subject line. If you have a bad history with men, the last thing you want to hear probably is, me man, me here to save you. How can I help? Probably not a good entryway. And also, how are my intentions going to be perceived if I'm coming in like, hey, how do we as men do better? But genuinely, from the bottom of my heart and the top left of my kidney, I want to know, how do we as men do better at bare minimum about the domestic violence thing? We can work on the rest of the gender wars later, but I need to start here. And I hate to do I have a sister, a mother, me, because I care about this on a level of human. But I have 4 little sisters, ranging from the age of 4 months old to my oldest little sister turns 18 tomorrow by the time y'all hear this. Happy birthday, Jasmine. I love you so much. To say I fear for them is an understatement. This generation they're growing up in, dog. I know as an older brother, we all say, oh, we're going to beat the you know what out of whoever touches them. But that's reactionary. That's not preventative. The damage is already done by then. And to say that doesn't ring in my head all the time, I'd be lying to you. All right, this has gone dark enough. This has gone dark enough. Sorry to end on a downer, everybody. In the future, I'm gonna try to give a joke or something so we can end on a good note. But this is where my head's at right now. Men, we got to do better. Women, I would love for y'all to tell us a way that we can. Until next time, thank you for listening to the BKA Beloved podcast. We'll be back next week.